When BBC gets its hands on classic novels, gives them huge budgets for costumes, and hires literally every great British actor available, you know exactly what you're getting. Murder, scandal, forbidden love, and Alan Rickman slithering through church politics like he owns the place. These are the 10 best BBC period dramas based on classic novels, and half of them you'll wish you watched years ago. Anne Bronte's book caused major controversy back in the 1800s, mainly because it showed a woman actually leaving her abusive husband. BBC didn't water it down either. Tara Fitzgerald plays Helen Graham, a mysterious widow who moves into Wildfell Hall with her young son. The neighbors gossip like crazy, and through flashbacks in her diary, we slowly find out why she left. Her husband was basically a drunken, abusive mess. Rupert Graves, playing the husband Huntingdon, completely nails it. He's charming at first, but quickly reveals how awful he really is. And then there's Toby Stephens, way before he played Mr. Rochester, who plays Gilbert Markham, a local farmer drawn to Helen despite all the rumors. BBC got the tone exactly right. Moody cinematography, great costumes, haunting score, all spot on. Brontë was way ahead of her time, and this adaptation completely respects that. Honestly, still probably the best version out there. Elizabeth Gaskell's novel about class struggle and romance between England's quiet countryside and noisy industrial north gets the full BBC treatment here. Margaret Hale, played by Daniela Denby-Ashe, moves from her peaceful rural home to Milton, basically Manchester, after her dad quits being a minister. Suddenly, she's facing smoky factories and clashes head-on with John Thornton, the harsh, blunt mill owner played by Richard Armitage. Of course, eventually they fall in love because it's BBC. But beyond that, you get really sharp insights about industrial workers, Victorian class differences, and actual meaningful social issues. And the train station ending is pretty iconic now, honestly. George Eliot's final novel mixed together high society drama with questions of Jewish identity and self-discovery, so it's not exactly your typical costume romance. Hugh Dancy plays Daniel, an adopted gentleman trying to uncover who he really is after rescuing a Jewish woman. Then you've got Romola Garai as Gwendolen, a proud aristocrat stuck in a nightmare marriage to Hugh Bonneville's seriously icy villain. BBC did a great job capturing all these complicated threads. Daniel exploring London's Jewish community, Gwendolen trapped and regretting her choices, and their lives occasionally crossing paths. Beautifully shot too. Lavish costumes, grand sets, typical BBC quality all around. Anthony Trollope basically wrote the book on church politics, and BBC turned two of his novels into this sharp, funny miniseries. Set in the fictional cathedral town of Barchester, the story revolves around Reverend Septimus Harding, Donald Pleasance, great in this role, whose job comes under fire, causing power struggles all around him. You've got the new bishop and his pushy wife, scheming chaplains, and Alan Rickman in his breakout role as Obadiah Slope. Basically the sneakiest character ever. BBC nailed the satirical tone here, blending comedy and drama without ever going too heavy. Rickman is especially memorable. He basically steals every scene he's in, which isn't surprising. It's funny, well-observed, and genuinely clever in how it skewers Victorian church politics. Another Trollope adaptation, but totally different vibe. This one's all about greed, corruption, and high society scandals in Victorian London. David Suchet is perfect as Augustus Melmotte, a charismatic but shady financier who basically scams everyone with a questionable railway scheme. As he rises, everyone wants a piece. Bankrupt aristocrats, ambitious social climbers, idealistic engineers, until, inevitably, it all comes crashing down. You've also got Matthew Macfadyen as an irresponsible young baronet, Cillian Murphy as an earnest, idealistic engineer, and Shirley Henderson as Melmotte's daughter, who's caught right in the middle of everything. BBC went big here, capturing Victorian London perfectly. Great costumes, beautiful sets, sharp writing, but mostly it's darkly funny, cleverly satirical about greed and ambition. Suchet's performance alone is reason enough to watch. He's so convincingly manipulative, it's honestly impressive. This one's a classic BBC-style period drama, set in a little English town back in the 1820s, focusing mostly on Molly Gibson, the daughter of the local doctor. Her dad remarries, which means Molly suddenly gets a new stepmother, who's pretty shallow, and a stepsister, Cynthia, who's charming but also brings plenty of complications. There's the usual stuff you'd expect: romantic entanglements, conflicts around class distinctions, family dynamics, all that good period drama stuff. Molly's played by Justine Waddell, she's warm, sensible, relatable, and Cynthia's played by Keely Hawes, who's great at characters that aren't quite as perfect as they seem. There's a pretty stacked cast behind them too. Michael Gambon even won a BAFTA as Squire Hamley. It's written by Andrew Davies, who's basically the king of adapting these classic English novels for TV. People compare this one a lot to the BBC's famous version of Pride and Prejudice. Similar vibe, similar quality, though it doesn't get mentioned quite as much. But if you're into small-town stories with great characters and that classic period drama feel, it's really good stuff. This is one of Thomas Hardy's darker stories, so obviously expect tragedy. You've got Tess, a poor country girl who finds out her family might have noble roots. She goes looking for help from the wealthy d'Urbervilles and ends up completely betrayed and seduced by a rich jerk, Alec d'Urberville. Her life never really recovers from this one event. Later, she meets Angel Clare, played by Eddie Redmayne, who genuinely loves her, but past secrets and society's judgment follow her everywhere. Hardy loved exploring these themes: innocence betrayed, unfair society standards, and this adaptation sticks really close to the book's tone. Gemma Arterton plays Tess and completely nails the role. She makes Tess believable, human, someone you genuinely root for. Hans Matheson does the creepy Alec perfectly, and you've also got great supporting actors like Anna Massey and Kenneth Cranham. It's beautifully shot, really captures that English countryside feeling, and it sticks close to Hardy's story. A few small details here and there aren't historically perfect, but overall, it feels real and true to the novel. Based on George Eliot's massive novel, this one's all about a small town called Middlemarch around the early 1830s, right before big social changes started happening. There's multiple storylines and characters woven together. Dorothea Brooke, an idealistic young woman who makes the huge mistake of marrying an older guy who's brilliant but basically emotionless. Dr. Lydgate, a progressive young doctor who wants to revolutionize medicine but keeps hitting roadblocks. And then there's Fred and Mary, this young couple trying to navigate family pressures and class differences. Juliette Aubrey won a BAFTA playing Dorothea. She really captures the character's passion and frustration. And Rufus Sewell plays Will Ladislaw, Dorothea's artistic admirer, quickly becoming a fan favorite. Andrew Davies adapted this one as well. Again, he's great at these complicated novels. Critics loved it. It's smart, detailed, faithful to Eliot's story. It moves slow, though, very much in the classic BBC tradition of leisurely storytelling. Not a quick watch, but if you like diving deep into character drama, it's worth the time. Charles Dickens wrote a lot of famous books, but this one is definitely more obscure. Still, BBC turned it into a sprawling 14-part series filled with mystery, family secrets, class struggles, the usual Dickens package. Amy Dorrit, played by Claire Foy, before she got big, grew up in a debtor's prison because her dad stuck there permanently. During the day, she works as a seamstress for a harsh old woman named Mrs. Clenham. Then Mrs. Clenham's son Arthur, Matthew McFadyen, comes home from overseas, takes an interest in Amy, and things start unraveling. Critics loved it. Dorrit won a bunch of Emmys, including Best Miniseries, praised for performances and great production design. It turned an obscure Dickens book into something genuinely engaging. Definitely worth checking out if you're into these long-form period dramas. Dickens's last completed novel, and definitely one of his darkest, is turned into this 4-part BBC adaptation. The story revolves around a massive fortune left behind by an old miser named Harmon. His heir, John Harmon, is presumed dead, but secretly he's alive and watching to see how everyone behaves around his money. BBC nailed Dickens's dark, satirical tone. The whole thing feels a bit gothic and eerie, but also very sharp about greed, class, and redemption. It even won several BAFTAs, including Best Drama Serial. It's not as famous as other Dickens adaptations, but it might actually be one of the strongest they've ever done.